You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a special live stream edition of the Baumbastic Podcast presented by Inside Arkansas. I am your host, Andrew Ellis, on this beautiful Sunday, July 6th. And it's been a busy weekend for the Arkansas Razorbacks in the transfer portal. We are going to be talking about all of that, getting to some of your chats, which I don't get to do a ton, but we have that opportunity today. There was just simply so much going on. I felt like we had to jump in and talk about it, talk about what's been going on in the transfer portal for Arkansas. The last time I spoke to you guys was Thursday. I guess July 3rd is when that would have been. And I did an episode titled, Who Will Be Arkansas's Next Portal Pop? Well, they get 3 in the next 3 days. And so I felt like that warranted a live stream. So I appreciate you guys for being here with me today on this very program. We're going to put our knock on wood. We're going to cross our fingers, hope the internet holds up. But seriously, appreciate you guys being here with me today. We are going to talk about the additions of TJ Pompey, Micah New, I believe I'm saying that right, and Damian Ruiz, who we spoke about on the podcast on Thursday. You've heard about TJ Pompey a lot. You've heard about Damian Ruiz a lot. They chose to be Razorbacks. Arkansas gets 3 massive portal commitments in a weekend. Could possibly be a 4th on the horizon very soon, and I think that would just about lock things up and finish this portal class. But we are going to break it all down for real, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Appreciate you being here with me today. Before we get going, do want to talk to you about a couple of our sponsors. Today's episode of the Baumbastic Podcast is brought to you by Looper Auction and Realty. Why wait months or even years to sell your home the traditional way at Looper Auction and Realty? They offer a faster, smarter option. Sell your home at auction. No repairs, no contingencies, no drawn-out negotiations. You set the terms, buyers compete, and you walk away with a firm closing date, whether it's your home, an estate, or investment property. The auction method puts you in control and gets it sold fast. Call Looper Auction and Realty at 479-996-4848 or visit looperauction.com. Looper Auction and Realty, sold in 30, closed in 30. Today's episode of the Baumbastic Podcast is also brought to you by Hickey and Hole Law Partners here in Arkansas, where they handle matters such as divorce, custody, criminal, civil litigation, and more. Divorce and custody cases are too important to try and face alone. Let Hickey and Hole Law provide you with persistent and diligent representation to help guide you through the entire process. They have handled thousands of family law cases and have experienced nearly every scenario that may come up. They know every case they take is important, and they strive to give each and every one the utmost time and care it deserves. Hickey and Hole Law have offices across the state of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Little Rock, and Mena. You can call them today at 479-2414, or you can check out their website, visit hickeyandhole.com, or scan the QR code at the top right corner of your screen. It's Hickey and Hole Law. Things are about to get better. So again, there's been 3 commitments. Normally when we're going live for a big commitment, it's like one guy, and we spend the entire time talking about this guy. It's kind of tough with this one because there's 3 big-time additions, all of which figure to be starters in the Arkansas lineup next year, all of which answer a ton of questions. So I want to give each of them the kind of time they deserve. And again, we've talked about these guys on the podcast. If you've been watching, if you've been paying attention, we haven't been talking about Micah New. So I was surprised by that one. You guys were probably surprised by that one as well. But we're going to talk about him and what that means. But you've heard a lot about Damian Ruiz, most likely. You've heard a lot about TJ Pompey. And so this is really going to be a refresher course for some of you. But again, I want to answer all your questions, and this is a chance for us to kind of talk about this. But I want to start at the beginning so we can just talk about this weekend because it has been a hectic one. So again, I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to make this about myself. So it was Thursday, July 3rd. I knew I wasn't going to do a podcast on July 4th because America, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try and cover my tracks, cover my bases, and I'm going to, just do an episode titled Who's going to be Arkansas's next portal commitment? And then, after the weekend, maybe something happens, maybe it doesn't. We'll just come back on Monday and rehash it. I'm talking about as soon as I get that episode uploaded, about 10 minutes later is when TJ Pompey, and I was going to lunch with my girlfriend and her father, and we were at City Park, and that's when I see, okay, yeah, TJ Pompey commits to Arkansas, and I was like, all right, well, thankfully I had just talked about him on the show, so I didn't feel like, I was like, okay, that doesn't really warrant a live stream. We'll be okay. And TJ Pompey, again, third baseman from Texas Tech, big-time power, hit 11 home runs hit 10 home runs, hit 280 as a freshman at Texas Tech, was a top 150 player in his class, 6'4", 200. Honestly, and I said this on the show the other day, could not be a more ideal Brent Iredale replacement because he's the same position, third base. Now, he does have the ability to play short. I've seen some theories that, hey, maybe he's going to play short. Maybe he's going to play first base. Maybe he's going to DH, all this. maybe we can have that conversation, but at least in my brain, and I think probably the staff's brain from a recruitment and roster building standpoint, I think they view him as a Brent Iredale replacement. And again, he's basically a bigger, younger, more athletic version of Brent Iredale. He was on pace for a very, very productive sophomore season. And again, this is a guy who is a top 150 player in the same class as Cam Kojal, Nolan Souza, Ryder Helfrich, Gabe Gackel, all these guys. He fits right in that mold in terms of just where he's viewed as a potential prospect. Has a really productive freshman year, hits 280, double-digit home runs, strikes out a good bit, but again, you could see the mold of what he was going to be. And then he comes back as a sophomore at Texas Tech, hits 348 with 5 home runs in 19 games. Really strong start to the season, gets hurt, misses the rest of the season. And so we didn't get to see what kind of level he could reach to. Of course, he was going to play in the Big 12. The batting average was almost certainly going to calm down a little bit, but was this a 15 home run guy? Was this a 20 home run guy? Was he going to settle in around 10, 12 like he had his freshman year? Who knows? We don't get to know. Arkansas will now get to find out what that guy is going to look like a year from now. And again, positionally, we can have an argument for shortstop, maybe second base, maybe first base. I think he's a third baseman. I think just it makes sense. And I haven't gone through a ton of clips of like watched film on the dude's defense. But just again, when I saw his name in the portal, when I saw that Arkansas was connected, third base was kind of the obvious choice to me. But we'll see how that plays out with the staff this fall. But I think he makes a lot of sense there. And there again, there's not really a ton of controversy. Like with Dylan Grego, Nolan Souza, even Cam Kojal, I would say, even Reese Robinette, who you know, will he be in the everyday lineup? We'll see. But all of these guys can play multiple positions. So it's really not the end of the world where it's like, oh, they got Pompey. That must mean they can't have any other second baseman. They can't have any other first baseman. It's like, I think you can kind of move these guys wherever you need. And so I thought Pompey was kind of an easy addition to get behind because of the talent, because of the production he's probably going to bring with the bat, but also positionally, I don't think there's a ton of controversy there, which is, again, why I was like, we had talked about him on the show, really we didn't learn a ton of new information with the addition of TJ Pompey. Now, the one that really I feel like we learned a lot with was last night when Micah knew, and it was about 8:30 on Saturday night, July 4th weekend. Great time to commit, young man. And really, Joe Doyle had put out a tweet about Micah New literally yesterday morning and was like, hey, this dude is crushing in the Cape. Like, keep an eye on this dude. He's having a great run here. Well, he puts up this tweet that, you know, later that night that says, hey, according to the Falmouth Commodores play-by-play guy, Micah New is committed to the University of Arkansas. And he's had some insurance if Justin Thomas goes pro. Both players are draft eligible, leverage. Very, very interesting get. And you see that tweet below. That was the one he had put out this morning. And he was like, hey, it's hard to ignore what, and he had tagged Maryland because that's where he thought he was going. Maryland shortstop or outfielder Micah New is doing in the Cape right now. He has 6 home runs, putting up all these numbers, blah, blah, blah. Talking about how he was an interesting draft prospect. And this has happened before where a play-by-play or a color guy for a team in the summer says, hey, yeah, this guy's going to be playing at Arkansas next year. And it's like the player hasn't even made an announcement. So that's always kind of a funny thing how that plays out. And honestly, I want to put my hand up first. I overlooked Micah New. There's a reason I had not talked about him on the show, not because I didn't, think he was good or whatever. I just, at some point, I dismissed him. I remember him entering the portal. I remember seeing, I guess it was a week ago or so, that Nate Thompson was following him on Twitter. And so I probably should have really done my due diligence and seen if there was something there, but I kind of just dismissed him. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like there's other options. I didn't look too deep into Micah New. And then it was about 2 days ago, there started being some buzz there. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, the dude's committed to Arkansas. And so again, maybe he'll come out and clarify and say, hey, actually, I'm not committed to Arkansas. But, if someone says something and you don't deny it, I feel like it makes sense. And a lot of these baseball players are wired that way, where they don't really make announcements. They don't really say things. And so they kind of let the public figure out, and they don't really care too much about it. And plus, he's playing ball in the Cape right now. So it's like he's doing what he's got to do, which, by the way, Dave Van Horn and the Arkansas coaching staff are making their way up to the Cape soon. So there's a couple players that they'll get to see. They'll get to see some Razorbacks, of course, Colin Fisher, Kahio Aloy, Cam Kojal's now up there. Tate McGuire's up there. Hunter Dietz is up there. So he'll get to see those guys. He'll get to see his new commit, Micah New. That'll be great. But also there's another pitcher Joey Volchko, who we'll talk about in a second, I'm sure, who is also up in the Cape. So it's going to be a busy week ahead for the Arkansas coaching staff as well. And so maybe that's when they can clarify, hey, are you actually committed? Are we signed? Like, what's going on here? But this is legitimate. Micah New is a big addition for Arkansas. Let's talk about him a little bit. So Micah New, and again, when I'm saying Micah New, if you're listening on audio, you probably think that's spelled one way. The way this name is spelled, Maikaniu, Micah New. I think that I'm pronouncing it right. I hope. At-bats as a freshman, but did perform well in those at-bats. Hit 287 with a couple home runs, OPS over 900. So, nothing to write home about because he only had 30 at-bats, but he was okay. Then as a sophomore at University of New Orleans, gets to play an everyday role. Then he hits 291 with 8 home runs, 6 doubles, 4 triples. Remember that, 4 triples as a sophomore at the University of New Orleans. Also stole 6 bases. Played 46 games as a sophomore, so not every single day. There was about 15 games that he missed there, and whether that was coach's decision or him being injured, I don't know. But played every day and was a lot better as a sophomore. Hit 291 with 8 home runs. Like, that's solid info. The next year, which was this year, transfers to Marshall, which is now in the Sun Belt. He goes from the Southland to the Sun Belt, a little bit of a step up in competition. You're playing against Coastal, you're playing against some decent programs, Louisiana, Sam Houston State. Like, you're playing some real programs now. And he hits 276, slugs 560, has an OPS over 900, hits 15 home runs, 14 doubles, 5 triples, 14 stolen bases. Now he is another guy like TJ Pompey, doesn't mind striking out a good bit, had over 50 strikeouts, had 50 and 51 in his sophomore and junior seasons. His junior season, he actually cut down on the strikeout rate because he played more games and struck out the same amount of times and was in a better conference. So maybe there's something to build on there, but definitely not a contact at all cost type of hitter. But again, you saw the damage. I mean, I read you the damage: 15 home runs, 14 doubles, 5 triples. So it's 4 triples as a sophomore, playing 46 games. Plays 58 games as a junior, hits 5 triples. He's already hit a triple in the Cape. The reason he does that, and you saw it in the Joe Doyle tweet there, legitimate 60 grade speed with a 55 grade arm, and 50, for those that don't know what I'm referring to, 20 to 80 scale. That's how they do it with the prospects. If your tools, they rank them on 20 is the worst, 80 is the best. If you have an 80 grade hit tool, that means you're like literally Barry Bonds, or you're like Tony Gwynn. That's like the best possible 80 power would be, Barry Bonds type of thing. So anything over 50 is like above average. And bordering on good. 60 is like good. And you would think, okay, yeah, that's, having something above average is normal. Like Vahiva Loy's hit tool, for example, is a 45. He doesn't even have an above average hit tool, and he hit whatever it was, 350 at Arkansas. So for someone to have a 60 grade speed, like, that is well above average at the college level speed, and it's reflected in what he's done out there. I mean, stolen some bases as well. Stole 14 bases as a junior. He's already stolen 8 bases in the Cape Cod League, which is notable as well. And again, I think a big part of why maybe I dismissed him, and why I think not a ton of people were talking about him, he's kind of a late bloomer. Like, came on strong. Speaking of, 11 home runs in his last 13 games at Marshall this past year. So he hit 15 home runs on the year. 11 of them came in the last 13 games. So I don't know if there was a light bulb that went off, or just something he found in his swing. He was killing the ball down the stretch, and he carried it into the Cape Cod League. He's played 17 games in the Cape Cod League and has hit 6 home runs, which leads the entire league. That's a lot of stuff. So, I mean, you add it up, what is that? 17 home runs in his last 30 games, half of which have been played with a wood bat. That's some legitimate power. It seems like there's something he found there. And so, again, this is a guy that 2 months ago, if we had been talking about him, would not have been considered a notable addition at all. And now all of a sudden, I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, holy cow. Not only is this an adequate Justin Thomas Jr. replacement, like, this dude's got some real tools there. might even have worked his way into the draft this year. So we'll see if there's any draft interest. Of course, Pompey's not eligible, but Damian Ruiz and Micah New are both draft eligible, as is Justin Thomas Jr. So we'll really have to see, how that plays out, which of those guys get some interest. But I think Micah New has turned out to be like a diamond in the rough that I don't think any of us really saw coming. And so credit to the staff for being able to identify that, get that one done. I thought that was a really notable addition. And so, again, this happens last night at about 8:30, and we knew that Damian Ruiz was announcing soon. I think I said on Thursday's show, I was like, hey, that announcement should come soon because he's taking his visits. Like, we know who he's visited. Let's see what we got here. Like, you should know by now. And Arkansas got the last visit, which is always a sign that makes you feel good, at least conceptually. The longer that it went on, I was kind of like, man, I don't know if, this works out. And then when I see that Micah New is committed, now I'm really sitting there thinking, okay, now Micah New is a center fielder who also has played shortstop, has also played third base, has also played first base. Seems like he's very much a utility kind of guy. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I'm like, Arkansas adding an outfielder right as Damian Ruiz is about to make his decision between Arkansas and LSU. Very easy for me to be like, I don't know if that's necessarily the greatest sign. And so I was actually kind of prepared to do a podcast today and be like, is this a bad sign? Great, you got the Micah New kid, awesome, but like, does that mean you're not getting Damian Ruiz? Does that mean Justin Thomas Jr. is for sure not coming back? Which, again, that's a conversation we'll have to have here in the next week or so. I would lean towards, like, I think I said Thursday that Justin Thomas Jr. 51% yes. I'm going to flip that. I'm going to go maybe even lower than 49%. Justin Thomas Jr. most likely just going to get a number, has probably heard from a pro team that told him something that he likes, because I don't think that move was a coincidence. But again, that's kind of where my head was at. And so I'm kind of thinking, all right, Arkansas's got a center fielder. They've got a third baseman. You've got some returning infielders. You got Grego to maybe play short or second or third or whatever. You've got a good catcher. You got Kahio Aloy. Like, there's really not a ton of spots left. And that was before today when Damian Ruiz makes his announcement. And by the way, Damian Ruiz makes his announcement, picks Arkansas over LSU and over Mississippi State, which always has to make you feel good. You can't beat LSU in the national title, but you can beat them out on the recruiting trail. Arkansas does that. And beating Jay Johnson in a recruiting battle is no small feat, but a big-time announcement, big-time addition in Damian Ruiz, the Southland Hitter of the Year. Refresher on what he did. His first 2 years at school did not do a ton at Houston Christian, was in the Southland Conference, hit 263 as a freshman, and then did not have an everyday role as a sophomore. So kind of got phased out a little bit at Houston Christian, which I'm sure was a big moment in his career, his development, to kind of look himself in the mirror and be like, all right, what kind of hitter am I going to be? What kind of player am I going to be? Transfers to Lamar. And again, I don't know if there's a light bulb going off. Maybe he found something, whatever. He hits 388, 7 home runs, 22 doubles, walks 50 times as well, only 27 strikeouts. So like literally half the strikeout rate of Micah New, who I just raved about. The hitter of the year in the Southland Conference. Now, again, Micah New played in the Sun Belt. He's playing in the Southland, where Micah New started his career. Not the most illustrious baseball conference by any means, but to get the best hitter from that conference, I think, is notable. And Damian Ruiz, a lot of these guys that we talk about, TJ Pompey, big time power, big time, athleticism, a lot of swing and miss. Micah New, big time power, big time athleticism, a lot of swing and miss. Ryder Helfrich, big time power, big time athleticism, a lot of swing and miss. Nolan Souza, big time power, but you get my drift here. That's a lot in the lineup for a lot of guys that, again, all those guys I just listed are going to have good years and are going to do big damage for Arkansas. But it would be fair to say, okay, do we really want to have 9 big, strong guys that hit home runs? Like, don't you kind of need some other skill sets? And that's kind of why I think this Damian Ruiz addition is so big. And honestly, guys, he's most likely going to be starting in left field. He's very Charles Davalani. Now, he's a little bit bigger. Him and Micah New are both in the 6'1", 170, 180 range. But both of those guys are in the same kind of athletic profile and now very different skill sets, because Damian Ruiz is a lot more bat to ball, gap to gap, not necessarily trying to hit for power, taking a ton of walks, very patient, goes the other way. Both are right-handed hitters, by the way. I just feel like it's the perfect little skill set to mix in there with this Arkansas lineup. I think it's a big-time addition. And I don't, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not declaring it like, hey, we're done. No more lineup additions. I think the Hogs got themselves a lineup, man. I think that if the season started tomorrow and Arkansas had just the position players they have on board now, assuming that none of these guys, sign or whatever, and we'll even assume Justin Thomas Jr. signs, I think Arkansas would be in a very good situation. Before I hop into the chat, I do want to hop in and just go through this lineup real quick, and we'll see what you guys have to say about it. But I got Ryder Elverick at catcher. Y'all good with that? Sound good? I've got Cam Kojal at first base for now. That could change, but that's kind of where I'm leaning as of today. Nolan Souza at second base. That could change, but that's kind of where I'm leaning as of today. TJ Pompey, third base. Same situation there. Like, that's just where I'm at now. Dylan Grego at shortstop. Again, he's draft eligible. We'll see, but that at least makes sense in my brain. And really, you can play musical chairs with those guys and shuffle them all around however you want to do it. But those are the guys I see starting in the infield as it stands today. Left field, I have Damian Ruiz now. I think I'm pretty safe in predicting him to be a starter somewhere in the outfield. I have him in left field. Micah New is your center fielder, assuming Justin Thomas Jr. Is off to play pro ball. Right field, I actually have Kahio Aloy, believe it or not. I have Kahio Aloy, but again, could be Zach Stewart, the Missouri State outfielder that we talked about last week. Another guy, big power, a lot of swing and miss. And I think DH spot could be Kahio Aloy. But I think you have two left-handed bats there in Zach Stewart and Reese Robinette. You could also mix and match. You could have Kojal DH with Reese Robinette at first base. You could have Nolan Souza DH if you wanted to. You could have Pompey DH, whatever you want to do there. But that's sort of conceptually where I see the lineup. And we can argue about, amongst those positions. You could say, maybe I'd prefer this guy here. I'd prefer that guy there. I don't think we look at any of those spots and say, man, Arkansas has a question mark. Like, they have an opening, where like, hey, another transfer needs to fill. Now, this time last year, I was in the same mindset where I said, yeah, I kind of like this lineup. I think Arkansas is set. And then a few weeks later, they add Cam Kojal, who wound up being as pivotal to the lineup as anybody in the entire roster. So, again, me feeling that way and saying, hey, I think the lineup may be set doesn't guarantee that Arkansas doesn't add someone who could be a very real threat to start and play every day, hit in the middle of the order. But just right now, that's kind of where I see it. I feel like Arkansas is probably good in the lineup, and we'll talk about it. But I think you're looking at one more pitching addition, and I have a decent idea of who that pitching addition would be. And I think Arkansas's got them a squad, man. And we'll see how it plays out. We'll see. Maybe the staff changes their mind. Maybe there's, if there's someone you just can't pass up, sure, you go get them. But with what Arkansas had coming back, we said it all along. I didn't feel like Arkansas had to do this crazy overhaul of the roster. They just kind of needed to fill some spots. I think Arkansas has done that so far in the lineup and done it very well. So let's get into the chat and let's see what you guys have to say about it. Fozzie565 says, surprise pod. That means let's go. You know what that means? Let's go. Woo Pig Suey. Ellis is the man. This is definitely a true statement here. I see my guy, Eric Musselman's Ghost. Shout out to you, Beeler. He says, two questions for you, Andrew. Who's your favorite pickup? I really like TJ Pompey and Ruiz. Also, do you think we get Joey V? And this is a reference to Joey Volchko, the Stanford right-handed pitcher who is currently, according to 6'4 Analytics, Volchko is the number 2 overall player in the portal. I believe the highest ranked uncommitted prospect and the number 1 pitcher, of course. You look at the numbers, they don't necessarily reflect it, but big time stuff. To answer your question, Eric Musselman's Ghost, yes, I do think Arkansas will get Joey Volchko. Shout out to Riley McFerrin, by the way, who does a great job covering the portal. I should say that. Does a great job for all portal coverage. I mean, he's like the portal guy in all sports, honestly. He does a great job, but he was, I think it was him that was reporting the other day that Volchko is following Arkansas sorority girls on Instagram, which you may hear that and say, why is he reporting that? That is a telltale sign. When a guy starts following the sorority girls, that means he is attending that university. That's how we found out Mason Molina was committed to Arkansas. That's how you find out a lot of secrets these days. You can follow some teammates. It's one thing, like, again, if he followed Nolan Souza on Instagram, that doesn't mean anything because, they're same draft class, probably ran into each other to showcase, maybe played on the same summer ball team. Maybe they crossed paths at Team USA or something. I don't know. When you start following the sorority girls, that's when you're playing baseball at that school. And so good to see Joey Volchko getting out in front of it. And seriously, I really do. Everything I've heard seems like it's Arkansas's in a very good position. Now the team they're competing with for Joey Volchko is LSU. So you can never feel super confident when that's your competition. But I like the way things are shaping up there. Hayden Ulmer wants to know, will we even lose a game next season? Maybe. They'll probably lose some games here and there. Might not be a sweep every weekend, but I'll say this, Hayden. Nobody's going to go into a game with the Razorbacks expecting a win. They might think they can get a win, but they're not going to expect a win against the Razorbacks. And then Ryan McDaniel follows up with, word is Joey V started following an Arkansas sorority girl. Yes, that is that, and that's a big deal. I mean, it really is. Gunner Files, not to be confused with Gunner Flies. Shout out to producer John, who's behind the wheel today. John is like the Lucius Fox of today's episode. You can't see him, but he's doing his work behind closed doors. He says, I haven't been keeping up with the portal. How are we looking on pitchers for next year? So again, going into the offseason, you looked at what Arkansas had coming back. Gabe Gackle literally might be the most sought after. He might be, if every college baseball team were starting their roster from scratch, Gackle really might be the first pitcher taken in that fantasy draft. You can maybe make a case for a couple other guys, and you could. He's going to be a preseason All-American. Like, I think he's going to be a potential first-round pick. You knew you had that piece. You knew you had Cole Gibbler coming back, who's one of the top pitchers in his class. You've also got Aiden Jimenez, who's a veteran strike thrower. Is going to be a big part of your team. Potentially Parker Coyle comes back. Potentially Ben Bybee comes back. You got Colin Fisher, Tate McGuire, Hunter Dietz, Steele Eves, who's been throwing the ball pretty well for Arkansas. Like, you had like a really nice core there to build around. So we knew it wasn't going to take like 9 pitchers for Arkansas to feel good. Last year, Arkansas took 3 pitchers, Root, Beidelshees, Jimenez. That was all they needed. Arkansas is going to take more than that this year, but it really wasn't like they had all these gaping holes to fill. And before the season even ended, they picked up Ethan McIlvain from Vanderbilt, left-handed pitcher with big-time stuff. Now, he's not going to be a guy you can stretch out a ton. The command needs to clean up for sure, but like a legitimate draft prospect, one of the most dynamic left-handed pitchers in the class. I think he's kind of your Hunter Dietz insurance. Like, if Hunter Dietz doesn't work out, you've got this like older, healthy left-handed pitcher who's pitched in the SEC, just needs to clean some things up. But I think he's a very legitimate setup option. I like that addition. They get Jackson Wells from Little Rock, who'd been a weekend starter there, led the nation in ERA a couple years ago. What will his role be for Arkansas? It's unclear. Most likely going to be a back into the bullpen type of guy. He's been up to 98. That's another experienced arm who's from Rogers. I like that pickup as well. I think he's kind of a Dylan Carter replacement type of guy. Wow, why am I blanking now on these pitchers? Who else did Arkansas add? I feel like they added why am I completely blanking? Arkansas added a pitcher like not that long ago. Y'all help me out, chat. Who did Arkansas literally just add like 2 days ago? Am I tripping? Who is the guy that Arkansas? There's another pitcher. Oh, Volchko is the guy I guess I'm thinking of here. Joey Volchko is the Stanford right-handed pitcher who, again, is not committed. We'll see. Kircher, by the way. Thank you, Ryan McDaniel. Good Lord. The Oklahoma right-handed pitcher, Jackson Kircher, is the other guy who I think he threw 12 innings at Oklahoma last year. He's another guy. You want to talk about following sorority girls on Instagram. Jackson Kircher, that's how we knew about his commitment beforehand. But he's a kid. He's from Little Rock. He played his freshman year at Oklahoma. Big-time talent. He was up to 98, 99 as well from the right side. Maybe he's your Fouch replacement. And so, again, you start seeing Arkansas not having a ton to replace, but they're filling in these certain roles. And now I feel like Joey Volchko, the Stanford right-handed pitcher, who, again, has been very inconsistent in his career. It's no guarantee that he's going to be like this ace, but is very much a big-time right-handed pitcher who the draft guys are all in on. They think he has really, really impressive stuff. My guy, Peter Flaherty, who I had on the show the other day, he said he might have the best single arm in the 2026 draft class. So it's a nice little mold of clay for Matt Hobbs to work with. He's coming back. He would be a legitimate weekend rotation type of option. And then again, I think Cole Gibbler, maybe I'm alone in this. I think Cole Gibbler is a legitimate weekend starter type of guy. And I think he's going to take that kind of jump into his sophomore year. Now, I also would have said that about Gabe Gackle, and it didn't necessarily play out that way. But I think Cole Gibbler is going to be a legitimate weekend starter type of guy. I think Aiden Jimenez could be a very legitimate option as a weekend starter. If not, he's going to be a really reliable bullpen arm. And so if you added in Volchko on top of that, I feel like you would have just an unreal stable of like just arm talent, and then a ton of other guys. I mean, like a Parker Coyle, like a Colin Fisher to kind of piece in behind them. You got some strike throwers, you got lefties, you got righties, you got pretty much every type of situation imaginable. And then Gunnar Files, by the way, follows up and says, so what does everyone think will be our starting rotation? If it were up to me, or if I were just guessing, I think the starting rotation would look like Gackle on Friday, Volchko on Saturday, Cole Gibbler on Sunday, but maybe you flip that around. But I do think those three guys would probably be the guys. L wants to know, is Will Gasp in the Cape right now? Yes, he is. He's asking about Will Gasparino, the Texas transfer center fielder. He is playing in the Cape right now. Braden Dowd is also playing in the Cape right now, the USC transfer. But Mike Anu is also playing on the Cape right now, and I feel like Arkansas has their center fielder. And by the way, I also am like perfectly fine with Mike Anu. Like, I don't think I've seen a few people say that like Mike Anu, they're like, oh, he's just like a fourth outfielder. I very firmly disagree with that. I think Mike Anu is gonna hit fifth at Arkansas next year. I think he's legitimately good. I think he's a legit prospect, and I think that was Arkansas's decision. I think they chose Mike Anu. I'm not saying they chose him directly over Will Gasparino, but I don't think there was a ton of buzz there. Like I didn't, he's playing in the Cape, so obviously it's tough for these guys to go on visits. Andrew Wiggins, I think, was another option as well. Never really heard a ton of buzz there. Braden Dowd, never really heard a ton of buzz there. And I think Arkansas went with their guy. Although, to be fair, there really wasn't a ton of buzz with Mike Anu as well. But yeah, all these guys are on the Cape. And so it is kind of funny that if Dave does want to do some extra recruiting, there are plenty of guys for him to get a look at and plenty of guys for him to go talk to. Ryan McDaniel says, Ellis, who is the most likely to be drafted of the outfield three? I'm assuming this is the transfer guys, because you would have Zach Stewart, who is draft eligible, Damian Ruiz, who is draft eligible, and Mike Anu, who is draft eligible. I would have to say probably Damian Ruiz, right? I don't know this for sure. And Brian, I want to clarify that I'm not I haven't spoken to Joe Doyle, hit me up yesterday about Mike Anu, which shout out to him for that. I thought about asking him hey, how do you really feel about all these guys as prospects? I haven't gotten anyone's opinion, anyone that I respect's opinions. And honestly, I would say I haven't watched them enough to really have a strong opinion on it. But based on just tools and stuff, you would think Mike Anu actually might be a legitimate draft candidate, especially with what he's done in the Cape. Now it's rare, honestly, that you see someone this late in the process, because the draft's literally in 5 days, that you see someone change their draft stock that much based on the Cape this year. But I don't know if there were ever a guy that could do it. Mike Anu, by the way, is now hitting .318 on the Cape with 6 home runs, OPS over 1,000. All these guys that are options at Arkansas for center field, like Braden Dowd, he's hitting in the Cape right now, and he's hitting 200. Will Gasparino's hitting 150 in the Cape right now. Not saying that, just because in a small sample size, Mike Anu is hitting better in the Cape, that means he's for sure better. But I know scouts love doubles, so I feel like Damian Ruiz, that's got to be an attractive trait of his. I mean, he hit .388 and was a Southland hitter of the year. Pretty good athlete out in left field. I feel like he would probably be the best bet. But Mike Anu's tools are pretty loud. Legitimate speed, legitimate power, and he's been crushing with a wood bat this summer. I feel like he's one that we don't need to sleep on as well. Westside Jacoby says, DVH getting some big-time athletes. That's the name of the game now. Strong and fast, can play multiple positions. No, this is 100% true. I mean, you think about a lot of the guys on Arkansas's roster, they fit this kind of criteria. I mean, Nolan Souza is big and strong and fast and can play a lot of positions. I think Mike Anu is a 6'1" isn't big necessarily, but strong and fast and can play multiple positions. I think and he's a guy that can play infield or outfield. I feel like Nolan Souza is a guy that can play infield or outfield. Hell, TJ Pompey fits that kind of criteria as well. And so I think that's what kind of makes this roster fun, is that you can kind of let your imagine. Like if someone came to me and they were like, you know what, I have a lineup and it's got Nolan Souza in center and Mike Anu in left and all that, like you could probably sell me on it. Like I'd probably be like, you know what, it's not crazy. You could talk me into TJ Pompey playing shortstop. Maybe that's a deal they made. You could talk me into Dylan Grego playing third, second, short. It don't matter. You could talk me into Cam Kojal playing first base, third base, second base, DH. Doesn't matter. Hell, I have Kahio Aloy starting in right field. I mean, I could be talked into a lot of things. So yeah, I think it's cool to see just, again, so many skill sets to where it's not like you're forcing a square peg into a round hole. You're just getting a bunch of athletes and you're like, y'all just go play baseball. There's 9 of y'all. Y'all are all good at baseball. Just go play. We'll figure it out. I like that a lot for sure. And it gives these guys multiple different pathways to get into the lineup as well, which I think is nice. Eric Musselman's Go says, Andrew, I think Ethan McIlvain is going to be a dude. Saw him pitch, and I think he is special. I mean, dude, he's one of those guys. Ethan McIlvain, again, you look at his numbers, had an ERA over 7, and you can see immediately why. He had almost, I think it was exactly 1 walk per inning, which is never going to help yourself as a pitcher. And he's had some outings, of course, blow up on him. But you watch him on the right day, and he looks like an absolute, like, day one type of arm. Big. He's like 6'5", 240. He's massive. Left-hander, fastball up to 98. His slider has like a 47% whiff rate or something stupid like that. It's like of the metrics, the nerds love the whiff rates and all the advanced numbers on it. His slider is like one of those metrics that just like the scouts just drool when they see it. There's a reason he has a ton of buzz around him despite not having the production really. And the same could be said for Joey Volchko, who's kind of interesting as well. I think both of those guys are like, some fans might look at that and say, are these pitchers that they brought in really that good? I think if you look at the stuff, it's a lot more intriguing. Hurley Stoniker says, how many are we losing to the draft though? And again, I'm assuming this is referencing to the transfers. I'm going to be honest with you, Hurley. I don't want to sound stupid or naive here. I don't think many of these guys are like massive draft threats. Now, Andrew Hutchinson, my buddy, had a really good story because he got to speak with Ball State's head coach, who of course coached Dylan Grego. And Ball State's head coach basically made it seem like MLB teams have told him they are very high on Dylan Grego. And if you look at all the draft rankings, he's not listed on them. Like Joe Doyle did a top 600, and none of these guys that we're talking about are listed. None of them. So like, if you're basing it off of how some of the draft guys feel about them, it's very real. It's very possible to see a lot of these guys not getting drafted and being kind of in that perfect mix. But if you're going to, all it takes is one big league team to like them and give them a number they like. So I don't want to be naive and just be like, oh, 100%, don't worry about it at all. They're all going to come to Arkansas because things can change really quickly. And it just takes one team. But I really, seriously, I think Grego's probably the biggest threat to leave out of all those guys that I just listed. And Ryan just asked about which of the outfielders is the most likely. I think Mike Anu certainly got to watch for, but I think Damian Ruiz is kind of in that perfect range of like good college player, obviously hit for a high average, very productive, has some experience. But I think given the level of competition that he played in and given the fact that he didn't produce a ton of power, I think is probably going to be why he does it. And he's not a center fielder either. If you're going to be a guy that, it has, you're playing against iffy competition level, you better be like a big time athlete or be like a very versatile defender that can do multiple things. I think the fact that he played left field and played in the Southland is probably going to be why he doesn't get drafted. Now, Mike Anu is a little bit more athletic. So maybe actually the more I'm talking about it out loud, I actually think Mike Anu might be a bigger threat to get drafted than Stewart or Ruiz. And Stewart was draft eligible last year when he was a year younger and was coming off a year where he hit 21 home runs and he didn't get drafted. So if he got drafted after hitting 11 home runs and having his batting average dip, that would be a little weird, right? But who knows? I mean, again, it's tough. I don't want to sound stupid and be like, no, dude, everyone's going to be back. Justin Thomas is coming back. Everyone's going to be back. It's all good. Yeah, we'll see. But I honestly don't think I don't think all these guys are ones where you're going to have to like sweat out every single one of them on draft night. Gunner Files says, I just want to see Nolan Souza come out and have an awesome season. Last year didn't start the way he wanted, and then once he got going, got hurt. No, I mean, this is could not. I might actually put this on my grave of I just want to see Nolan Souza put things together next year. Nolan Souza is that guy too for me. Like, and I've had a lot of these guys over the years where like he could have 7 straight years that play out exactly like last year, and every single time when the offseason comes around, I'm going to be like, but wait, if that light bulb goes off, if like I've said that with all these guys, like Micah New, you look at his game log, you can kind of see where things started to click for him. I feel like we were this close to that with Nolan Souza, who, by the way, again, had dominated Arkansas pitching all offseason. So it wasn't like this thing of a question of whether or not he was capable of hitting big time pitching. You just got to do it on a consistent basis. And he got in a rut, got in his own head a little bit, and it took him a while to climb out of that. But yeah, his last swing of his sophomore year was against Georgia's right-handed ace. Is it Brian Curley? Brian Curley just goes the other way with 97 on the black and just hits it off the wall left field fence. It's like, that's the exact type of swing you want to see for his development. And he did it. And it's like, oh man, you want him to build on that. And then he just tears his shoulder like 2 minutes later. It's gut wrenching, man. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like Nolan Souza, and like, that's fair. But like a lot of these guys, I think there's just a lot of upside. And I think the fact that Arkansas is bringing in some older guys, I think is going to help Nolan Souza. There's not going to be a ton of pressure on him to be this like hit third and produce a ton of runs for us and stuff like that. And then Reverend E. Savvy says, who is the pitcher? Joey Volchko is the pitcher. It's the worst kept secret at this point. Joey Volchko, I think, is going to be. I think he's the final target, like the final priority. I'm not saying they couldn't get anyone else, but I think that's the guy that Arkansas and a lot of other people are after. And Westside Jacoby says, competing with LSU for a pitcher is tough when they just had Skeens and Anderson. Hope we get him. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's certainly tough, but at the same time, and I'm not even saying this again, I don't want to sound stupid. Arkansas had a top 5 pick last year, left-handed pitcher in Hagen Smith. Ever heard of him? Arkansas is going to have 2 first-round picks this year in Zach Root and Gage Wood. Maybe Zach Root's not a first-rounder, but Gage Wood, I feel like, is certainly going to be a first-round pick. Zach Root might be in that top 45 range. It's not like Arkansas's got this like, shaky track record when it comes to producing big time arms. Of course, Gabe Gackle is going to be another potential first round pick next year. I think Matt Hobbs has certainly earned that type of respect. Not to say that LSU hasn't. I mean, clearly they've been quite the factory. They're the defending national champs for a reason, and they had a big time starting pitching duo. But I don't think Joey Volchko looks at Arkansas and LSU and sees a massive advantage in the development side of things. If I had to guess, that's not confirmed. I just feel like I don't think that's what the decision is going to be based on, of like, oh, which one of these guys produces elite arms, because Arkansas and LSU have both really done that. But yeah, we shall see. A few other chats we can get to. Let's see. And then Ryan McDaniel makes a good point here where he says maybe that's why we got 2 other shortstops in New and Pompey. Speaking of Grego, because Grego, again, is a very, at least according to his coach, which of course his former coach is always going to hype him up, seems to be a very legitimate draft risk. Yes, Souza's another guy. I've heard of a lot of people say that like it seems like the staff actually would prefer to have Souza play shortstop. He's played there in scrimmages before. His coach, Rick Nomura, of course, another one where we're quoting his former coach, but Rick Nomura feels like that's where his future home is going to end up being as shortstop. Of course, there's the injury side of it, but yeah, between Souza, New, who has played shortstop, Pompey, who has played shortstop, of course, Grego, if he ends up making it to campus, I feel like Arkansas has got some options there. Another guy that we haven't talked about a ton is Sherman Johnson. We'll see if there's still, if he's still going to be an option there, and Carson Brumbaugh, by the way, another freshman infielder coming in. We'll see if he makes it to campus, of course. I mean, he's already on campus. We'll see if he stays on campus. Arkansas is going to have multiple backup plans and contingencies, which I feel like is big time. It's big time. Haddison says, I trust Joe Doyle with my life. Yeah, no, Joe Doyle's the man, dude. He really is. And look, I really like. I just had another draft guy on my show last week, and Peter Flaherty, who also is another one. Absolutely the man. I love whenever I see him tweet out something that I agree with. It makes me feel so vindicated because I'm like, oh yeah, thank God someone else sees what I see. I think Joe Doyle and Peter Flaherty are like the dudes when it comes to that. And there's a lot of guys that are doing good draft stuff. I mean, Jim Callis, MLB Pipeline, like there's definitely going to be, there's plenty of good draft coverage these days. And so I love being able to lean on those guys, because it's one thing if I tell you guys that someone's good, but when they tell you, it means a little bit different. Jaron Green wants to know, is Cam Kojal coming? Cam Kojal, yes, he's not draft eligible. He's out playing in the Cape right now. I believe he went 1 for 4 last night in his Cape debut with a walk. Shout out to him. Him and Cahill are playing with the Bourne Braves. So, as well as Colin Fisher, got 3 Hogs on one team there. I think he's no doubt coming back. Like there's no other option for him other than if he wants to enter the portal, which I do not anticipate him doing. So we're gonna be following along his YouTube channel, but he's for sure coming back. Iredale, I would be stunned if he came back. And I think, again, you go out and get TJ Pompey. You have all these other contingency plans. There's not a huge need for Arkansas to like try and recruit Iredale to come back. I imagine he's going to get a number. Iredale's also old for his class, which I think is worth noting, which is part of why I think he kind of secretly wouldn't have been upset if he had signed last year, because he was draft eligible coming out of JUCO, and he was a very real candidate to do that. Iredale's going to be 22 at the time of the draft. In fact, he might already be 22. And I believe he's going to be 22 years old when the draft happens. So I really don't think he wants to come back next year and have no leverage and be 23 years old. I think he's probably a pretty safe bet, but you never know how these teams feel, these guys. I think he's going to end up being like an 8th to 10th round pick, if I had to guess. Gunner Files says Wiggins, if healthy, can be a shutdown closer. Yeah, talking about Carson Wiggins, without a doubt. I mean, hell, he was a pretty damn good closer last year as a freshman before he got hurt. I felt like he was just kind of starting to come into his own. Was touching 100 against Georgia. Like I was feeling good about Carson Wiggins. It does seem now again with him and Nolan Souza, it's like tough because they are so hurt. They're so injured right now. Like as of today, they are not able to do anything, and so it's like tough for me to forecast and be like, yeah, this guy should be, like Nolan Souza. Yeah, he's starting at shortstop. Carson Wiggins. Yeah, let's throw him. I don't want to like forecast stuff for him, but Wiggins, it seems like he's going to be healthy at some point during the season. Will it 1000% be opening day? Maybe, maybe not. It seems like there's a chance it will be though, which when he first got hurt, if you had told me he's going to be potentially available for opening day 2026, I would have signed up for that any day of the week, of course. I think it seems like he's going to be available. And even if it's not opening day, like so let's say you don't get Wiggins back until April 1st. I think that's plenty of time for you to like bring him back, build him up, have him ready to go for the postseason. If you don't believe me, Arkansas just did it with Gage Wood. They did it flawlessly, brought him back late in the year, built him up, and then had him ready for the postseason. I mean, hell, he was their freshest, best arm down the stretch. And so I actually think it actually really might even be ideal if you had Carson Wiggins take his time getting back and then really come back whenever he's ready to hit the ground running. Let's see. So Ryan McDaniel says, only worry, lots of arm talent, not a lot of proven production, which is not a terrible stance here. Gabe Gackle, think about it. He's the ace of the staff, and deservedly so. Like, I think we all feel very good about Gabe Gackle. We understand why he's going to be penciled in as a Friday night guy, and he deserves. Again, I really wouldn't trade him for really anybody in the country. But even he, was in the bullpen. That's where he kind of found his groove a little bit, was in the bullpen, and so he's got to kind of answer that question. I anticipate he will, but it is still a question. Cole Gibbler, who I'm very high on, has not started a game in his college career. That's not a ton of proven production. The Stanford kid, Joey Volchko, again, might be the best arm in the class. Like Ryan says, a lot of arm talent, not a proven production. That actually might be in his obituary. Lots of arm talent, not a lot of proven production. Joey Volchko is like certainly the poster boy for that. The only thing is, Ryan, and because I agree with your stance. I think you have so many guys to where like, yeah, you're probably not going to get the best possible version of Volchko. Probably not going to also get the best version of McIlvain and also get the best possible version of Kersher and also get the best possible version of Jackson Wells. Like, it might not be perfect for all these guys. And hell, we've seen that with some of Arkansas's transfers. They didn't get the most out of Mason Molina necessarily. I wouldn't say they got the most out of Lyle Lockhart either. Like, they've had some hits and misses, but I feel like with the list, there's like literally 16 draft prospect arms on the roster. Again, you might not have them all rolling, but I think you're going to be able to find a group of 7 or 8 that you can really, really count on. And again, I just think the ceiling is very high. And as we've learned in years past, like, and hell, we even learned it with this past year's Arkansas team, that depth in the pitching staff is kind of overrated. And I say that Arkansas's pitching depth last year was as good as anyone in the country. And I think we saw in real time why it is a little bit overrated, because you finish your season and you ended up having Dylan Carter just sitting there. You had Parker Coyle just sitting there. Now, he was maybe sick, but and you had all these arms that you really weren't able to use a ton. I think depth can be a little bit overrated. It's just about, do you have those top 6, 7, 8 guys that you can really count on? And so we'll see how long the list is that people have, or that Arkansas ends up, really rolling with an SEC play. But I think they're going to have enough overall. And I just also think some of these guys we're going to look back on and we're going to be like, why the hell were we worried about it at all? I mean, hell, like Gage Wood, I think there's a lot of people going into this past year maybe didn't view him as a legitimate SEC starting option. And, deservedly so, because there was a question he had to answer. But then you kind of look back and you're like, oh, damn, yeah, clearly you put a really talented arm and give them to Matt Hobbs. They can usually make it work pretty well. Gunner Files makes a good point here. He says Gibbler making Team USA travel team is really telling and will only help his confidence going into next season. 100%. Like, I think that's a great point. And I think it says something about him too. Like, there's only, by the way, I said the number the other day, it was like 30, 34. It's 26 dudes that made the team. Like, that's 26 of the best non-draft eligible players for Cole Gibbler to make that team as a pitcher, and some of the arms that are there, man, and some of the arms that didn't make the team. That's really impressive. He had 2 really good outings in the showcases. I think that obviously helped. I'm sure they saw him behind closed doors, but I agree that should absolutely help. And I think that's a very important, like, for Cole Gibbler, of course, he probably needs to get that third pitch consistently. And I think there's plenty of time for him to do that. I think he was a 2-pitch guy by design this year, because when you're coming out of the bullpen, there's no need to really experiment. Just get guys out. And that's what he did. I think he's going to be able to develop that third pitch well, but I think more importantly, he has to just believe it. He has to have that confidence of knowing he's a guy. And, I was talking to his dad, and his dad said watching him at Arkansas is the first time he's ever seen his son pitch when he wasn't super confident. And he was like, it was actually kind of weird to see him, because he's watched him his whole life, and he's pitched in all these big moments, these big showcases, pitched against the best players in the country in travel ball. And he's always been confident. When he was at Arkansas, he's like, he kind of had to grow into that a little bit. And that's, of course, very natural for a high school guy transitioning to college. I think the jump he's about to take from freshman to sophomore year is going to be pretty big. And I think he was pretty damn good as a freshman, honestly, man. James wants to know, do you think Schaefer will make it to campus? Currently, I would say no. And that's I'm not reporting that. I'm not like, that's not a fact. Just based on everything I've heard and based on just the situation that Arkansas has, I would say probably not. But I do think Carson Brumbaugh is going to make it to campus, and he's already there. And I think that's a big one. And I think Schaefer, it just makes sense. As a position player, man, it's really hard to get better if you don't play every day. And I'm not saying that Landon Schaefer for sure wouldn't be able to play every day. I mean, he's a very, very talented kid. Can't rule him out at all. But I don't think going to Arkansas and really having to compete for ABs is probably best for his long-term development and for his ability. I mean, if you can make $1 million right now, it's like, it's really hard to not do that. And I'm not saying he's going to sign for $1 million, but it'll be in that range for sure. And so I anticipate he will probably explore his options in the draft. Another good question from Gunner Files, who's crushing it in the chat today, says, who will be the breakout freshman pitcher this year? My pick for this, Jordan Martin, who is from Missouri, I believe. Big athlete, basketball player in high school, 6'4", 225, right-hander. I think he's now going to be converting to only baseball, and he's a really big athletic kid. I think he checks like all the boxes, and we'll see if he's able to like just hit the ground running and contribute as a freshman. But I think if I think about the guys that have like the biggest ceiling, I think Jordan Martin might be that guy. Really excited. I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in. We'll all celebrate him, but this is my guy. When he comes to campus and he crushes in the fall and he ends up being, a closing option as a freshman, I want everyone to. It was not that bold of a take for me to say that Cole Gibbler was going to be good. I mean, he turned down a lot of money to come to Arkansas, but I kind of picked him as my guy, even over Carson Wiggins. And I love Carson Wiggins. Carson Wiggins is my guy in real life, but like I like really was riding for Cole Gibbler. I think I'm going to do the same for Jordan Martin this fall for sure. Jesse Fox makes a great point. He says Brendan Clark will be a wild card too. Kid is a potential leadoff hitter type, leading the Santa Barbara Foresters in almost every offensive category. This is facts, man. He's had a great summer. We talked about him last week on the show, and he's continuing to just get on base at a really high rate. Left-handed bat as well. And a lot of the guys I listed for that lineup, like let me pull back up that lineup real quick that I had. A lot of the guys in the lineup, like let's say they do Kahio Aloy in right field, Mike Anu in center field, and Damian Ruiz in left field. Those are 3 right-handed bats. And that's not a big deal. All 3 of those guys are really good, but I think there's absolutely some room for Arkansas to have a left-handed bat that can also play center field, that can come in and pinch run, can steal a bag, another pinch hit option off the bench. Like I think Brenton Clark, occasional start, and like you said, legitimate leadoff hitter type. I think he's only struck out like 8 times in 100 ABs, maybe even more than that at this point. Very low strikeout rate in the Santa Barbara Foresters Collegiate League over there. Didn't strike out a ton in the offseason at Arkansas. Got on base at a good clip. He hasn't hit a home run this summer, but like there's some line drive power there with Brenton Clark as well. I think if he gets bigger and stronger, I think he's a legitimate SEC player for sure. He just happens to be on a team that, again, literally might be the best team in the country. And that's not me glazing Arkansas and, hyping him up. Like Arkansas literally might have the best roster in the country. So for him it'll take a lot for him to work his way onto the field, but he's very, very capable of doing it. And honestly, I hope he is, man. I'm glad that he's able to stick around. Ryan wants to know if Wiggins had the same procedure as Fisher. Yes, pretty much. Like it's that internal brace. Hunter Dietz also had it last year. Now I know Hunter Dietz, the return didn't go necessarily as swimmingly, but yeah, when you have the internal brace, it's a lot shorter recovery than the full tear, full Tommy John surgery, which is like 12 to 18 months. The internal brace, some guys have come back like 9 months after that. And so Wiggins, he would have had that surgery. It was before the season ended. So let me do the math right quick here. So let's say he had that surgery, we'll say June 1st, which would be the 6th month of the year. So if it were 9 months, that would have him back March 1st. And, that's maybe optimistic, maybe whatever. I think they'll be pretty careful with it. But like you said, Fisher had that surgery in like Fisher was throwing in like January 1st, he was throwing to hitters and scrimmages. So it's like, there's definitely room for Wiggins to come back, but with an arm that talented and an arm, by the way, that's draft eligible next year, I think it's kind of tough to like be like, hey, let's get him back as soon as possible. I think they need to honestly just take their chances, would take their time and make sure he's fine before he comes back, because you don't want to rush an arm like that back from injury right as he's about to enter the draft and, really ruin his life or anything. That's how you get some negative recruiting against you. So guys, I believe we are approaching the end of the stream. We've gone about an hour. Appreciate everybody for doing it, for popping up on this Sunday, kind of random on the fly. I didn't know for sure if I wanted to do it. I was, of course, worried about the internet. As you guys know, I'm back in the saddle up here because I got family in town, so I got to hide away in the corner. But I'm glad I was able to make this work. Glad I was able to, hopefully y'all were able to hear me at least most of the time. And yeah, again, appreciate you guys for being here. Hope this cleared up some things, because again, there was a lot that happened this weekend for Arkansas. But the headline is Arkansas basically went out and got 3 starters this weekend for the lineup. They're on the cusp of getting a big-time arm, the best arm available in the country. The reports of Arkansas's demise and DVH being too old and Arkansas not being able to recruit at a high level were greatly exaggerated, as they seem to be pretty much every year. Every year we do this. I'm getting out of here before my internet freezes up on me too bad. Y'all have a good one. Have a great Sunday. Happy July 4th weekend. Woo damn pig. We'll be back on the Baumbastic Podcast tomorrow. Appreciate you guys.